at Ashcroft and I didn't see the final goal, but I can imagine, obviously I've seen it since. Brilliant for Sunderland. I thought it would be awkward for Arsenal. I don't think there's any shame whatsoever in Arsenal drawing that game. I think that you'll always feel that when you're winning as a big club and then a team equalises against you, it's a sucker punch. You feel like it's a killer for you. But you're not going to have it all your own way during a season. They've been sensational, Arsenal, in this last 6 to 8 weeks. But that was a game that always had a little bit of a sort of banana skin around it. It just felt that way. Sunderland, the way in which they set up defensively, they're very well organised. They've got a real threat going forward. They've got a momentum in the stadium. The fans are with them. They're back in the Premier League. And, I remember going up to Sunderland. I remember going to Roker Park and playing, let alone the Stadium of Light. And, when it's rocking up there, it truly does rock. And they've done brilliantly this season. The first game of the season, I was massively impressed with them in that performance against West Ham, and I know West Ham have had a challenge at the start of this season, but the right sort of attributes, the right sort of principles of a team coming up, being hard to beat, being physical, running forward with real sort of aggression and sort of meaning and passion, and getting balls into the box and filling the box, things that I just think are simple things. A team coming up from the Championship, I've seen some right nonsense over this last few years of players playing out from the back and trying to be sort of Pep Guardiola's Manchester City when they've come out of the Championship. It's impossible to play football at that level like Manchester City can do. So I'm glad that we're seeing what we're seeing from Leeds and from Burnley and from Sunderland, which is a more pragmatic style, but I think equally as effective and more. I actually think, to be fair, when you see a team play like that, I really admire it and love watching it.
And from an Arsenal point of view, acknowledging obviously that it's irritating, to say the least, to concede in stoppage time.
Very.
Would you go so far as to say that actually that point at Sunderland isn't too bad? That's a really hard place to go.
No, I'm not sat there at all watching Arsenal get a point there at Sunderland yesterday and thinking in any way, shape or form that I'm surprised. In fact, in my predictions earlier on in the week on the podcast, I said I thought it would be a draw. So I'm not sort of rewriting history after the game. I genuinely thought this could just be a game that might just catch them out a little bit and cause them a problem. And they've conceded 2 goals. They've conceded a goal in the last minute. That'll hurt them because they're a proud team defensively and they're a great side defensively. But they've got to accept that then just, it's a Premier League, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and there are going to be some bumps along the way. And I just think that was one of the bumps that you get. The main thing is when you get a bump like that, obviously they're not going to be able to get straight back on the bike because obviously they've got an international break. But I wouldn't be in any way, shape or form putting that down to anything other than what normally happens in a Premier League season. That thing that you would say to yourself is, did you expect to win every single match? No team does that. Manchester City at their very best haven't gone through a season winning every single match. You're bound to drop points. You are going to lose games and drop points, ordinarily, and that's what's happened. But I wouldn't be screaming and shouting if I was an Arsenal fan, and I know they're not. And I certainly wouldn't be sort of screaming and shouting if I was an Arsenal player or coach, and I know they're not either, because Mikel Arteta will be they'll be really disappointed, because it'll just give you that when you lose a game like that, when you draw a game like that with a goal in the last minute, it's like having a cloud over your head. You try and forget about it in the next 24, 48 hours, but it just comes back and you think, and you just gives you a bit of a sickly feeling. But it's normal. That's what happens to